trained as an architect and practiced architecture for a number of years, and also taught at Washington State University, where I was teaching an interdisciplinary studio with CM students, architecture students, landscape architecture and interiors. And then I got to go on sabbatical. I finally got tenure, and I was teaching students about this, modeling. And I was doing it in a time when there wasn't really anyone in our area doing any modeling. So I was thinking, if I'm going to teach this and help students understand it, I better know what I'm talking about. So I decided to do my sabbatical with Autodesk. And so I started there, and there was so much happening in technology at that point. They were just acquiring Navisworks and Green Building Studio and Ecotect, and we were trying to exchange all this model data from one platform to another, and it was just really a really cool time. So I ended up staying on board with Autodesk and gave up my job for life. I don't have tenure anymore, and I ended up staying there for a while. And then I met this company called Assemble in 2012 at the Autodesk user group meeting, AU, and I was really intrigued with what they were doing. And so I came on board under the auspices of selling, and got to know what they were up to, and since then have moved into product management. So my evolution from architect to delivering software has always been, I never planned it, let's just put it that way. I never planned on ending up in a software company, but it's within the software company that I find that I am exposed to the most trends that are occurring in the marketplace. And it's a really amazing place to be. So what I intend to do is spend a few minutes talking about who we are and what we do to contextualize why I'm having this conversation with you guys about IPD. I'll show you a little bit about our product, and then you guys can hammer me with questions and concerns, because I know there's a lot of issues around IPD and contracts and all of that kind of thing. So, and sharing models and sharing information. So I look forward to that conversation. So first of all, we're startup. We just entered the market about 2.5 years ago, and we are already in 50% of the top 100 in our construction companies. And I think there's a specific reason for that. We fill a void, particularly in pre-construction, which is where I see a lot of our IPD projects emerge. Now, when I say a lot of our IPD projects, the actual IPD projects that we have as, using our software is very, very, very small. So we have over maybe about 3,000 projects right now that have gone through our system. And I would say of that, less than 1% are actually IPD. And the ones that are IPD, I typically can't talk about because we're contracted not to talk about them. However, there are a lot of things that have emerged from those relationships that I will talk about today. So we've evolved very, very quickly, and I feel like we have, because we are process enablers versus just being a tool. We're a different kind of a tool. We are a tool. So here's some challenges. Owners are requiring more BIM deliverables. They're requiring alternative methods of delivery, etc. And we have a situation where when you bring all these people together from the different disciplines, we have a huge problem because everybody's doing their work in different software platforms. And those platforms don't talk to each other, right? You create your information, and those information are in these silos, and those silos don't communicate, right? That's a big problem. And then there are a number of legacy solutions out there that deliver very, very prescriptive methods of working. And that is actually, I think, a limiting factor in BIM and using BIM for IPD. The reason is that 90% of the team in a construction project, or even more, maybe we want to say 95%, don't model. And they don't want to model. And they don't want to touch modeling software. And so there's this big gap in that we have all this stuff, all these models, and people don't know what to do with them because they don't know how to use the modeling software. And so that's where we've kind of come into the market, is with the idea that we can unlock model information and deliver it to more people so more people have access to it. I love working with estimators. They don't trust a thing. They are skeptical of everything, and to me that is like my primary target. Like, I go in and talk to estimators every day. I came here for this presentation, but I spent my day with pre-construction groups and estimators to try and find out what their challenges are, and it's the same over and over and over again. We don't trust models. We don't trust models. We don't trust models. And so I try to get to the heart of that. What is it that you don't trust? Well, I don't know how to, I don't know what I'm looking at. I mean, a lot of the things that they don't trust is not necessarily the information, but they don't know where it comes from. And they know where the sheets tell them the story, and they're even skeptical of that. So I feel like that is my primary target. If I can make estimators happy in the future, I will have accomplished a really powerful thing. But what we're trying to do is unlock model data, not just for estimators, but for anyone who doesn't know BIM. So an owner, the superintendent on the job, the guys who come in every day and have to try and complete something on the job. We want to deliver information to them that is relevant, contextual, and models do that, right? If you can deliver the information in a model, it's much more contextual, you can understand it better. But there's a gap between the tools and the skills in being able to engage in those models. So we are trying to extend the life cycle of how a model is used. We're trying to push it upstream into design processes and into the interaction that happens between the pre-construction teams and design teams. If it's IPD, all that stuff's happening very early, and we're trying to push the model all the way through the construction process. This is a big effort and a big challenge, and we are nowhere close to completing this Herculean effort, but that's our vision. We want to be able to really help people with that information throughout the process. Now, the way that we do that right now is we're enabling persistent data exchange throughout the life cycle of the model. So sometimes the model stops being used at construction. Sometimes it's used at the front end to, especially in IPD, to make sure that you are delivering on budget, on target, on schedule, all of that. Sometimes the model's lifetime stops at a certain point during construction. If it's used we have a lot of, we have probably, I can count on my hand, the number of GCs that actually use a model all the way through construction for productivity, to track productivity, and their payouts on their pay applications, etc. But we ultimately want the model to be used throughout the construction period. But what we're doing is ensuring persistent data. So multiple stakeholders are involved in the modeling process, particularly in IPD and collaborative delivery methods. We want each stakeholder to be able to add information to that, essentially what's a database, and be able to continue to develop that information, maintain its intelligence as the model continues to develop. So we want to make sure that the estimators can add their coding scheme while the model is developing. We want to make sure that the scheduler can continue to update their schedule with the model as the model continues to update. So we're trying to ensure that that data is persistent and that the intelligence around the model continues to develop without becoming a burden. Because that's when people stop using the models, is when they can no longer get the value out of it, right? Also, we want to ensure integration between systems. So we are exploring all sorts of integrations with all sorts of companies to make sure that models can be used in business process activities and platforms that help in the field. And I can't say all the names, or that push into estimating systems. We're exploring all sorts of collaborations right now because we ultimately believe that integration is going to be the future of what we need to do to ensure collaboration moves forward. And then because we are cloud-based, I haven't mentioned that yet, but we're in the cloud, we are trying to create as much ease of use as possible so that we are really low risk in trying to move to a platform. No matter what the team makeup is, each time your team is different. You can't count on the same skills every time you start a new collaborative project. We want that to be like a very low threshold for entering into our solution and using it for your collaborative projects. So we're trying to make it very low risk, easy to deploy, easy to learn, and you know, really to try and be as contemporary of a SaaS company as we possibly can. So that's a little bit about what we do. Now, I'd say our greatest, I was asked to talk about a case study, and our greatest success to this point is not a pure IPD project. It started out, I think probably everybody's familiar with JFK Airport, and there was a recent addition to the Delta terminal. And so that project went through 3 phases, and it was almost $2 billion worth of work. And it was delivered in 3 phases. The first phase was a disaster. They were behind budget. There were so many modifications that were happening. The design team couldn't keep up. The contractor couldn't keep up with the design team. It was just a fiasco. So they decided on phase 2 that they would deliver all of the work, you know, collaboratively. It wasn't an IPD, pure IPD contract, but they decided they were going to deliver all the work in BIM, entirely in BIM, and in particular Revit. They were going to do all their coordination in Navisworks, and they were going to pull the quantities from the project using our system on a weekly basis, so that they could significantly reduce the time that the design review process was taking, because they were simultaneously designing and building various aspects of the facility, managing logistics, all this kind of thing. So phase 2, they implemented their BIM execution plan, went significantly better, and by phase 3, they had fine-tuned so well that the last 1.5 months of the job, the entire construction team was working half days. They were under budget, ahead of schedule, and Delta was just over the moon in terms of, they threw this huge party for the team because they were so satisfied with the outcome of the project. So it took them 3 phases to fine-tune, but they ultimately got there. And that process required them to continually exchange model information. Continually exchange information around the model, let other parts of the project gain access to the model. So having the pre-construction team and the field engineers have access to the model to constantly condition it, to constantly be verifying quantities, to constantly be updating with productivity information. So it was a really great outcome, and one that we're really proud of. We actually have a little white paper on it. But I'll just spend a few more minutes and show you. Is that okay? So I didn't go through the login page, but essentially, let me go back to this. As I mentioned, we're cloud-based, and each one of these little cards represents a project. In my case, I have a lot of customers in here, but once I click on a project, then I have access to the models that the designer or the engineer might publish out. And typically, people are publishing when they're in our environment and they're working on collaborative projects. They are publishing on a weekly basis so that everyone has insight into what's in the model. And then if I actually navigate to the model, then what you'll see is that every version that's been published out has a record of it. So if an estimator goes and does a takeoff and they color code it, that's there, there's a record of it. If they end up uploading schedule information via our Excel upload, that's in that version. You know, they can kind of track the information as frequently as they want to publish it out. And then when you click on one of the actual versions, the information is displayed in 2 ways. One, a complete inventory of everything that's in the model, so that's in the grid, and then a visual representation of the model down below. This is all built in WebGL, so it's very lightweight. We aggregate very, 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 very large models with lots of information. Our database is a SQL enterprise database, and it's theoretically infinitely scalable. Right now, we're limited simply to what kind of data we can push to web browsers. So we can't necessarily, the web browsers like Chrome fall short of being able to deliver what we want to deliver to their interfaces. So it's a little bit awkward here to let's see if I can navigate here. So it's a little bit, let's see. There we go. So then the cool thing about this is that every single parameter that comes from this model is available and accessible here. So if you're a scheduling person, you want to sort this information by your schedule information. If you are an estimator, you want to sort it by your estimating codes. If you are doing QC work on the names, you want to sort it by category name, right? So you can choose to view any information you want to based on who you are. And you'll notice I've got a couple of views created on the left-hand side, just views that I've saved of the information. So I have, let's see if I can get my mouse to, there we go. So if I click on my metals view here, it's all the steel in the structural model. So an estimator might want to take off the structural steel. You'll notice that in the view, instead of having information about the parameters, other parameters that might be in the model, I've chosen to schedule unit cost and total cost. So I'm tracking the cost of the thing over a period of time. And then as a new model comes in, I'm going to go ahead and run a comparison here. No matter what role I play, if I'm an owner or I'm on the pre-con team, or if I'm on the design team and I'm trying to figure out what my consultants have done from week to week, I can run what we call a variance report. And in about 20 to 30 seconds, I can see everything that's changed from one model version to the next. So I can immediately find out what I need to work on. If I'm a scheduler, if I'm an estimator, if I'm some sort of other dependent party in this process, I'm able to figure out what I need to work on from week to week. So you'll see here, down below, let me see here, there we go. There's a little schedule on the left-hand side. Added, removed, type change, quantity change, and type and quantity change. So in this model, everything that's green was something that was added, and then everything that's purple was a quantity change, and then that information is also scheduled here up above. So you can see anything that's been added and removed in, maybe if I can get this to, there we go. Sorry, I don't have a way to make sure. So anything that's in red is a reduction, anything that's green is an addition, and you'll notice it's all being reported out in tons for steel. So all that information can be exported into a spreadsheet or into a Navisworks search set. So for coordination, when new models come in and the VDC team has a model that they're doing coordination on, they'll export this change into a search set and then import that into Navisworks so they can just do the coordination around all the new objects instead of doing it around every single object in the model. So they can isolate those changes. So just a little snapshot, complete inventory, everything that's in the model. It's really easy to change information, group information. So I have another view here, maybe. Oh, that's another. This is our new environment. We're actually betaing it for our customers. So we have full model federation. You just publish your models as you will, and then we federate all the models for you. But I was going to show one other thing. I didn't show you when I was mentioning about kind of recontextualizing the information depending on your role. I'm just going to group this database by uniformat, and we're going to go through and we're going to resort all the information based on uniformat. So now it's in the format, notice B10, it's in the format that the estimator wants to see it. So they don't have to go through and look at category names that they don't have any understanding of, or they didn't know how they were created. They can see the information in the way that they want to see it. Now this works in collaborative environments, right? This works very well in collaborative environments. Doesn't necessarily work in a traditional hard bid situation, but where the teams are working together collaboratively to share information and condition the information in the model and focus on the information in the model, this has been a solution that we have a lot of people using throughout the development of a project. So I'll stop there. Yeah, go ahead.
So I've used a symbol a few times, but it looks like you actually have the schedule, the construction schedule plugged in there somewhere?
No, so we're big data pushers, right? So we will be working on a direct upload from something like a Primavera the latter part of the year. But right now, the way you would do that is you'd import from Microsoft Excel. So if you have your, some sort of coding scheme that you're trying to align the model to, you condition the model with the coding scheme in Assemble, you upload the data, and then in that way you can tie it together. All the parameters in the entire model are here. I haven't shown them to you, but all the parameters can be conditioned. So if it doesn't matter what it is, if it's a Revit parameter or a custom parameter or whatever, they're all available. If they're non-geometry, we don't allow you to condition any geometry, but any sort of information parameters can all be modified here. Or you can export it to Excel, condition it, and then upload it. So a lot of data conditioning happens in our system. We do a lot of exchanging with like Vico and Synchro and to keep that model information persistent. So
that's great stuff. We talked